Hi everyone, it's January 20th, 2016, which means starting tonight, we're going to be getting the start of the second half of Season 2 for the TV show Star Wars Rebels. And just kind of in celebration for the TV show starting back up, I decided to read Star Wars A New Dawn, which gives the origin stories for the characters Kanan and Hera. So I'll just give a quick book review of that book. I won't get into too much of the plot. I'll just kind of give some thoughts and just some recommendations for A New Dawn. If you haven't read it and you're thinking about reading it, just the timeline of the book, I thought it was pretty interesting. We're 6 years away from the start of the TV show, Star Wars Rebels. I thought that was interesting. It's a little bit further back from the TV show than I imagined it would be. It just kind of shows you that by the time we get to the TV show, Kanan and Hera have been kind of palling around, fighting back against the Empire for quite some time. So we're 6 years before the Star Wars Rebels, the TV show. We're 8 years after Revenge of the Sith. So we are at a point where the Empire is kind of established itself already at this point. And we are 11 years before A New Hope. So that's the timeline if you're thinking about reading it. It was written by John Jackson Miller, who also wrote the Star Wars book Kenobi. I saw some reviews out there. Some people didn't like it. A lot of people did like it. I have to say that I was a big fan of the book Kenobi, and I would say that A New Dawn is an even better book from John Jackson Miller than Kenobi was. Staying away from spoilers at this point, I would say that if you're a big fan of the TV show Star Wars Rebels, I would highly recommend this book. It's a great origin story. It shows you how Kanan and Hera first met each other and then kind of go on an adventure together, we'll say, and whether or not they decide. We know that they pair up and they'll have to make the decision of whether or not Kanan should get into Hera's fight against the Empire. And the reason why I wanted to read it as well, I wanted to get a bit of background on Kanan, and this book gives you a great background to Kanan, just who he is and what he's been doing since Order 66. And to a lesser extent, you learn a little bit more about Hera, but as I'll get into, I kind of wanted to see a little bit more. But you do get some great background on Kanan. Also, too, just in regards to the plot and the story, I mean, it is what it is. It's decent enough. I think that you get a decent amount of surprises, some good plot twists. But I would say that if you're looking to read this, there are some great original characters. So if you're a fan of the TV show like I am, I would highly recommend Star Wars A New Dawn. And just getting into some of the spoilers now. So if you don't want to be spoiled, again, I would highly recommend it, but I will get into a couple of spoilers here. Like I said at the beginning, I'm not going to go into the plot. It is what it is. It's a Star Wars book, good enough for a Star Wars book here. But like I said, I really wanted to read A New Dawn just to get some more information on who Kanan is. I find that the Jedis who survive Order 66, I find those to be really interesting and some great characters that can be developed. Kanan is one of them also. I find him to be the most interesting character from the TV show. I was looking for some background information on him and I was not disappointed. The opening of the book is great in my opinion. It really kind of sucked me in and made me kind of go along for the ride at that point. Really enjoyed the fact that, you know, he's Caleb Dune. Kanan is Caleb Dune at that point on the sort of eve of Order 66 and during the Clone Wars. He wasn't Kanan Jarrus then. And I really loved that they tied it in to Revenge of the Sith, where Obi-Wan sets up the beacon for the Jedis not to come back to Coruscant and to avoid the Jedi Temple and to avoid detection from the Empire. And Caleb Dune, Kanan, is really the one that puts that into Obi-Wan's head. So indirectly we may have Kanan actually being the one who saves a lot of the Jedis that are remaining out there from Order 66. So I really liked the opening. That was great. Also, too, I really loved a lot of the choices that John Jackson Miller made for Kanan, in that he was sort of the exact opposite of what you would expect a Jedi to be. In Kenobi, Obi-Wan Kenobi, in the book Kenobi, Obi-Wan Kenobi was kind of struggling in trying to not give himself up to the Empire, but he couldn't really help himself from doing good and going back to his Jedi ways. With Kanan, we have pretty much the exact opposite. He's a drinker and he's a womanizer, and I love that part. It totally makes sense with who he should be at this point in his life, being a young 20, I guess he'd be 20 or 21 at the time. And he in no way is looking to be a Jedi or get into a fight with the Empire. He really takes Obi-Wan's advice when he resets the beacon to avoid detection. So I thought that that was great. He just kind of accepted his lot in life. He wasn't on a mission like Obi-Wan to get into a fight with the Empire and try to take down the Empire. The Emperor, should say. At this point in the book, when A New Dawn was written, 6 years before the TV show, he's really just looking to blend in and just get by. He's basically done with being a Jedi at this point. I thought that that was great. I really loved that part of the book. And one thing I kind of thought was a weird choice by John Jackson Miller. Maybe you guys are with me or not. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. I kind of hated that at the end of the book, when they're gonna do their kind of final confrontation of Count Vidiian, how they make Kanan grab his lightsaber and attach it to his belt. Just kind of using the principle of Chekhov's gun, where you kind of, if you're gonna show the audience a gun at some point of the story, then they better use it by the end of the story. I thought that that was just a weird choice to have him put the lightsaber on his hip, but then never use it against Count Vidiian. I kind of wanted him to use it at some point. That said as well, though, I can see why he wouldn't use the lightsaber. At this point, Kanan, again, just trying to blend in. He really isn't the Jedi at this point in the story. He's kind of just a normal guy trying to avoid detection, and therefore it would come natural for him not to use the Force, and we see him struggling with that throughout the book, and of course not to use his lightsaber. So I would have liked to see him light it up and kind of stick it through Count Vidiian at some point, just because you don't want to show it if you're not going to use it. But that said, I can see why John Jackson Miller made the decision for him just to kind of use the Force and signal to Hera that he was a Jedi, or at least a Force user at some point in the past. So Kanan was great. Excellent job with his character. Kanan enough for me was a good reason to read this book. With Hera Syndulla, she was a strong character. I really liked the way that she was written. It's just exactly in line with how her character is in the TV show. I do wish that they revealed a little bit more of her motivations and her personal background like they did for Kanan. I just kind of feel like she's just this strong character at this point who really hates the Empire, and I would love to know why at this point. We may get that in the TV show. If you guys saw the great trailer leading into the second half of Season 2, we may get a little bit of Hera's background, but I'm kind of just dying to know exactly why she's jumped into this fight and really is being kind of on the leading edge of the rebels at this point, 6 years before the show, but then also at the time during the show, which is still 11 years, I believe, yes, 11 years from A New Hope. So I really want to kind of find out a little bit more about Hera. I didn't get exactly what I was looking for from Hera in A New Dawn, but I think that there's a lot more to be revealed, and hopefully we get that in the TV show. Also, too, let me know what you guys think just in regards to the alluded to romance between Kanan and Hera from the novel. I didn't really pick up on too much of that from the TV show. There's kind of a little bit here, but there seems like there was a really kind of strong sort of romance that was building between them, but again, still trying to kind of fight it off with saying that Hera's just focused on fighting the Empire. I thought that that point was a little bit weird and kind of stood out a little bit as weird to me, but I would love to hear what you guys think just in respect to the supposed romance kind of line of the story between Kanan and Hera. Now, when we get to Captain Sloane and Count Vidiian, our antagonists in the novel, Count Vidiian, great. I really enjoyed him as an antagonist. I kind of felt, and I might be wrong, let me know what you guys think. I kind of had a Admiral Thrawn feeling to him early in the novel, just with, he's a really smart kind of genius almost, a guy who can do no wrong, is really kind of making his way in the Empire at this point just based on his smarts and the fact that, it seems like he's just accumulating wealth based on his knowledge. The fact that he was the cyborg, really interesting, kind of had a Darth Vader tie into it. I think they were going for more of a Darth Vader and General Grievous. That's how I imagined him, kind of this weird looking cyborg. But at the beginning of the novel, he was just this character who, every time he was in a scene, just with a real legitimate threat type of feel whenever he was around, and he kind of just did it brutally too. He would beat people to death just with his bare hands, given that he was a cyborg. So I really liked Count Vidiian, great antagonist. I thought that near the end, he kind of lost a little bit of his luster that he had from the beginning of the novel, and also too, just with the way that he's kind of found out by Captain Sloane. I was a little bit disappointed with how John Jackson Miller just kind of wrote a chapter or two just giving how Captain Sloane was able to find out that Count Vidiian wasn't the person he said he was, and just figuring out the exact sort of plans that he had. But that said, Count Vidiian was a great original character. Captain Sloane I really liked as well. Just kind of, she was the embodiment of the ambition that was within the Empire at the time. As we saw in the Clone Wars TV show, you could see a little bit of that ambition just with Tarkin, not yet a Grand Moff. But I really like Captain Sloane. Great character just to symbolize how ambitious some people were in wanting to rise through the ranks of the Empire. And then a little bit disappointing with the sort of sidekicks to Kanan and Hera. We have Skelly and Zaluna. I do get that you need some sort of side characters in there with them. I would have been just happy to have Kanan and Hera kind of running around together. I felt like Skelly and Zaluna had a little bit of feeling where they were just kind of the people there who had the information or were able to just kind of explain what needed to be explained or to fulfill a role that needed to be fulfilled. Really, Zaluna is this person who had all this information and then was able to pass it along to Kanan and Hera. She was a hacker or a slicer, as it's kind of alluded to in the book and known in the Star Wars universe. And then Skelly, he was this person who had all the information. But really, I like Skelly's role. He was sort of the firecracker that started everything in passing along the plans eventually to Count Vidiian. But boy, do you feel bad for Skelly by the end of the book. He was a really tragic character, but kind of had this really great storyline where he sacrifices himself at the end. But just, geez, everything he went through. He was a Clone Wars veteran. I love when they add stuff like that into these Star Wars books. Just makes sense. He was a veteran from the Clone Wars, but you feel bad for him. Everything he went through with that and the sort of long-term effects it had on his arm. And then also too, just he couldn't do any right the whole sort of novel, it seemed. But you do really feel happy for him at the end, even though he sacrificed himself. He kind of did what he was trying to do at the end, and I thought it was great, even though you saw it coming, that he was the one to finally defeat and blow up Count Vidiian. So some great characters in there. Again, too, I won't go into the plot, just because it is what it is. I did find that there was sort of a tie-in throughout the book, just with the Empire. I feel like the Empire was victorious at the end of the book. They kind of really made out on top, with Captain Sloane really getting a lot of the credit. But I don't know if you guys thought of this as well, but I did think with them obtaining the resource, I guess it's Thorlide, with them being able to get their hands on such a prized resource like that. They say that they needed it to build their Star Destroyers and starships, but I wonder too if that resource was key in ultimately building the Death Star. Just because it does say that it is sort of a material they need to build Star Destroyers, and seeing as we're 11 years out from A New Hope at this point, maybe there's a tie-in that they needed that, and because they had, it seemed like all that they needed at the end of the novel, maybe that's where they get a lot of the materials to be able to finish the Death Star. I don't know, let me know what you guys think in that regard. But that's my thoughts on the book. Like I said, highly recommend it for anyone who's a fan of the TV show, which does start back up tonight. I can't wait. It does look like the second half of season 2 is going to be great. But guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. I will say that the next review, I already have the book and I'm going to dive into it right away, is Aftermath by, I think it was Chuck Wendig. So I'm looking forward to that. It touches on the period post Return of the Jedi, in between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. That's really my favorite point of focus right now, where I'm wondering, with everything leading up to The Force Awakens, what exactly happened in between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. So hopefully there's some good stuff in there, just talking about how maybe we get the First Order, something on Supreme Leader Snoke maybe that's tied in. But hopefully that's enjoyable. Like I said, I'll start into it right away, and I should have that review up within a week or so. But also too, there's a lot of other canon books out there. There's Tarkin, Lords of the Sith. If you guys would like to see a particular book, then just leave it down in the comment section below. Happy to take recommendations, and hopefully I can dive into those books for you too. But again too, New Dawn by John Jackson Miller. Again, too, if you're a fan of the show, definitely recommend you guys reading it. But I hope you enjoyed the review. Enjoy the start of the TV show Star Wars Rebels tonight. Again, I'll see you guys soon. Bye for now.